Welcome to Up Close and Personal with your boy Thesis. Now real quick, today we've got the Precisio RTA. Now I'm hoping I'm saying that shit right, but that's what it's spelled. This is by BD Vape and Fumitech. I'm not sure if BD Vape is a sister company of Fumitech, but Fumitech's been around for quite some time, a few years at least. If my memory serves me correct, I think Fumitech was one of the few companies in the beginning developmental days of ceramic coils, and I'm not sure why ceramic coils haven't been pushed quite as much as they should be. I believe, and in my experience, that ceramic coils deliver a much better vape experience than just cotton, kanthal, or even mesh. To me, ceramic coils make the most amount of sense in terms of any type of heating element, especially inside of pod systems. Now I do know that there was a quote-unquote third-party study done by another company that they paid a third-party laboratory to do studies on their ceramic, and I guess what they had ended up by finding, again, I'm not entirely sure the legitimacy or the validity of this study because it was, one company against another. I guess they ended up by finding that there was small, microscopic pieces of ceramic coming off and being inhaled by the user with degradation in terms of heat with that ceramic, but I don't necessarily know the validity of it. All of their links at the bottom of this laboratory's page led to nowhere, which of course kind of raises questions and raises a red flag. Generally speaking, on a website that's supposed to be scientific, if the links aren't working, it just doesn't look legit. You know what I'm saying? So with that said, big shout out to Fumitech for sending this bad boy out. They did not have to do that, but I'm glad they did. This is one of the best MTL RTAs I've ever used. Bitch, it's okay. Now before I continue and get into the actual RTA itself, big shout out to everyone who's gone and taken the time to hit up Asmodeus on their website and review the Barrage, as well as, my V Pro, as well as Vapor Range, all the different websites that have the Barrage available. Thank you guys for taking the time. With all that aside, let's go ahead and take a second and unbox this bad boy. I like that it's a round design. It's not your standard box. Right there at the top, you've got this warning card. So that big Clapton coils 0.3 and under, totally fuck off. That shit's hilarious. BD Vape, whoever did this little design, I'm digging these emojis. Right here, same situation. Okay, but fuck off. Big box, 200 plus watts. That's why I've actually gotten the single battery cold seal sitting here for this guy. 22 millimeters. It's not a big tank, so if you take this and measure it all the way around, I think it's 22 millimeters. It seems like it'd be that size. I've been using this bad boy for months, so you'd think I would know. Holy shit, look at the tolerance. 22.01. For the price you pay of this tank, it is worth it. Whether you pay 35 all the way up to 56, depending upon where you get it and which version, I promise you guys the machining on this thing is second to none. And I'm including the K-Fund in with that. That's a $100 tank. I would put my money on this in terms of it being better. Since we got the measurements out, let's check out the length. 44.57. You can also get an extension that's going to bring it up to something like, I would assume like that, 50-ish. Now with all that aside, I want to go ahead and mention that this RTA will not be given away. This is one of my personal favorite ones, and it's the only one that I've got. Fuck, maybe that's a good reason to give it away. We'll kind of figure it out on the Patreon page itself. This is a pretty simple device. RTAs in general, I think 4, maybe 6 pieces at the most. Some I've seen all the way up to 8 and 9 if you remember the Ithaca from years ago, but this is not that case. This is a simple setup. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 if you include the drip tip. Right here, let's go and pop this on top of the cold seal. Now I'm not going to do a build with this bad boy, mostly because I've gone through maybe a dozen different coils, and this one in particular has been beyond flawless. It's just perfect, and I do not have any more of these Claptons this size. Go and zoom in on it. Look at that absolute gorgeous setup. Right there, there's 2 slits, 1 and 2. They call that quote-unquote indirect airflow. I don't know why they would call it that, because it's directly hitting that coil. Once it hits that coil, comes up to the chamber, it is a conical design, which is of course the best way to achieve flavor. It takes the density of that vapor, brings it together right there at the top, and shoots it directly onto your tongue like a fucking laser pointer. This is about the best machining you can expect for this price. If they charged $100 for this tank, I would still say it's worth it. It's going to be on the high end, but it's worth it. If you can find this for anything less than 60, I would say pull the trigger. For 35 bucks, you'd be silly not to. Now with that said, let's kind of go ahead and just look at it one more again. Now what I'm rocking on here is a little bit more of a lower wattage, or excuse me, a lower ohm, a lower resistance than I would normally recommend for something like this. I have tried dozens of coils in here, basically just to see what was the best fit. And in my opinion, this Clapton coil at this resistance is the best fit, 0.92. Usually I would rock something like a 1.5 or a 1.2 ohm atomizer, especially with just a micro coil, 1/8 inch thick, maybe 6 wraps at the most. And I would use something like a 24 gauge at the lowest. I wouldn't rock something like a 22. I would keep it like a 24 gauge, 18 watts, real slow ramp up. That's how I like it. Oh, good golly, Miss Molly. I'm gonna cool this off once so you guys can see it from top to bottom. Hit that button. From the inside out. So I'm using something between a 2.5 and a 3. It's probably closer to 2.8, somewhere in that range. I'm gonna go ahead and take some cotton. Let's go and wick it up with the cotton, mostly because this is more of a slow wick in my experience. Unless you keep that cotton extremely fluffy, then I would just say fill it to where there's no space where you can see down below inside those juice wells, but you don't want to overstuff it. I've gotten a couple of burnt hits if I'm not paying attention to my wicking process. The nice thing about it though is that you can remove the top cap without actually having to dump the juice. Let's grab my ceramics. This might even be a little bit too lengthy of a cotton strand. So So then I'll grab that. I'm not gonna stuff it. I'm just gonna make sure it's in there nice and loose. Pull this out just a bit. The beautiful thing about RTAs like this, running at higher resistance and lower wattage, is that these don't tend to gum up. They don't tend to get a whole shit ton of carbon build up over time. If you just leave that nice and cool, you don't get it overly hot, you're not going to build up carbon as fast as you would on, say, something that's a 0.2 ohm atomizer running at 85, 95 watts. Keep that nice. Bam. See, not rocket science. It's perfect. They both graze the bottom at the juice well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my daily vape in terms of a salt, and I'm going to throw this bad bitch in there. Let's go and do that together. Now with this one here, I want to be real patient. Once I've got that liquid onto the cotton, I also want to take some more time and get it nice and neat. Again, I don't want that cotton getting bound up in those threads. I want to get it saturated so it's all the way down to the base and right in the middle of that strand. Anytime you're using an Ultim up against stainless steel, make sure you take a second and notice the placement of the threads. You don't want to cross thread it, and you also don't want to over thread it. I've done it before with this one. I was able to get it with my fingers, didn't have to use pliers. Once that's all together, pop it on top like this. And I wish you guys had the ability to feel what I'm feeling in terms of those threads. Listen to this. Just butter smooth. Fill it up on these giant juice flow holes. I love to have these big open mouths like that, kidney shaped on either side. Perfect. I'm going to take the top cap, buttery smooth. So I'm gonna get it just to where I can feel the resistance of that O-ring. Flip her upside down. Absolutely perfect. Now right here at the base, you're gonna see that it is adjustable. It's wide open. Twist it counterclockwise to shut her down. And then you're gonna reveal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 holes, much smaller. But in my preference, the best MTL vape you can get off of this tank is with one single hole. Watch this. The flavor that is being produced by this tank is literally second to nothing that I own. The X-Promiser is phenomenal. The K-Fun is phenomenal. This is phenomenal +1. The K-Fun is extremely easy to use. The difference is things like this Ultim cap that's in the middle of the K-Fun, where it's sandwiched between that stainless steel top and then bottom. It gets stuck all the time. It does get cross-thread every once in a while. Little things like that kind of hurt the overall experience, especially when you're building or especially when you're cleaning. This makes all of those processes that much simpler. The experience overall of this tank, just in general of daily use, is that much better than the K-Fun. It's that much better than the X-Promiser. The X-Promiser is great, but it's a little bit more complicated with more parts, and that's kind of where that X-Promiser sits. I love the X-Promiser. It's better than the K-Fun in my opinion, just out of the way it looks, but this one reigns king, in my humble opinion. This is a tank that I will own probably forever. If not, if I give this one away, I will end up by purchasing another one in both colors. It's simply the best RTA in terms of MTL. The way it looks, overall aesthetics, easy to use, all that combined into one category. Simple as that. Bitch, that's okay, mother truckers. Now with that being said, let's go and get back to regular review, son. My final summation is this: the Precisio tank by Fumitech and BD Vape. It's amongst the top tier MTLs I've ever used. That goes with one of my favorites of all time right here, the .mod AIO. That goes with the AUG Vape AIO. That goes with the UL Whirl tank and the UL Whirl AIO. That goes with this. That goes with the K-Fun. That goes with the X-Promiser. Continuously on down the line. This tank that I'm holding in my hands is representative of what the vape community is about. It's representative of what the vape community, vape industry can produce. $50 for something that's well machined, something that works every time I hit the button. I've never had a misread. I've never had a short connection. I've never had those screws back out. I want to look at it, stare at it, and just touch it. I want to use it. It's something that's got an X factor. The knurlings on the outside look absolutely stunning in my opinion. The heat sinks on the drip tip are a beautiful addition, mostly because it directs heat away from the drip tip. I do wish there was a way for this to be glass and or Pyrex, but I can tell you that the 22mm design is beautiful because I can use it on a lot of my old school 22mm mechs. That's always a plus to me. It just feels like I'm vaping the past, but with today's technology. I love this tank. I cannot say enough kind words about it. Huge shout out to Fumitech, huge shout out to BD Vape. Again, I'm loving it. Now I know what you're asking yourself. Hey, yo, Thesis, what's your rating on the compatibility scale, bitch? That's a great question. Happy it's viewing a peep game, son. The Precisio tank, in terms of an MTL RTA, scale of 1 to 10, 9.3 to a 9.5. That's with everything considered. The only con I could think of with this tank is maybe the heatsink drip tip does tend to get a little bit dirty over time, which is kind of gross. I have dropped it a few times on the concrete. It did get a little bit scuffed up and bent right there at the tip. It's kind of got this chip mark or this kind of dented mark on it. You can feel that on your lip, but at the same time, I'm just happy it didn't break. So as long as you keep that drip tip clean, you'll be just fine. Now, with all that being said, if you enjoy the free content, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, comment below, let me know your thoughts on something like this, especially at $56 or between $56 and $35. Is this something you'd be willing to pull the trigger on? Yes or no? Hit me up, of course, on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, all at ThesisHimself. Bitch, it's okay, mother truckers. Now, with that being said, I want to tell you that I appreciate y'all for vaping with Thesis. It is your boy Thesis. I'm out.